to the Town of Burlington Select Board meeting for September 13th, 2001. Please, 2021, please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. All right. We anticipate either our town clerk or moderator to be here for one of these agenda items. We're gonna bypass that one for the moment. What we'll do is go to item number 237, appointment. Mr. Sanchez, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having me tonight. So tonight, I'm here to introduce Paul Barbieri. On August 26, I completed interviews for a position of water and sewer laborer within the department. And after reviewing the qualifications for Mr. Barbieri, I'm recommending him for that position. Paul, I believe he's currently working with Parks and Recs. Am I correct to say that? Where he has done that for several years, getting experience from the duties and responsibilities of maintenance personnel. He also has an associate's degree in criminal justice from the Middlesex Community College and has already started the process of getting a CDL license for future opportunities within the department. He's also CPR certified, first responder certified, and has completed some prep work for the hoisting licenses 1C and 2A, which again will come in handy in the future in the department. So I'm looking forward to Paul joining the department as a full-time employee.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With John's recommendation, I appoint Paul S. Barbieri to the position of water and sewer laborer in the Burlington Public Works Department and ask that the board waive its 15-day waiting period.
So moved. Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor of waiving the 15-day waiting period?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Nice to see you smile. Huh? That's a good one. I like that. Good. He's all set. Good. Just coming. Satisfied customer of yours?
I can handle it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Okay, item number 238, appointment to the building department. Mr. DePaul, step forward, please.
Good evening, Honorable Board. I'm Mark DePaul, the Inspector of Buildings, in case nobody recognizes me, because I came on during COVID. Yeah, a little screenshot. So I conducted interviews along with Joanne Faust from HR, and we have recommended Marty Allen for the position of local inspector over in the building department. We started doing, the job was posted back in June 30th, 2021. We had many applications. Unfortunately, a lot of them weren't certified. Mr. Allen has been a local inspector for 11 years in the town of Chelmsford. He's certified by the Commonwealth of Mass and the BBRS. And he also has a construction supervisor's license, which is a prerequisite of this job. And I think Mr. Allen would be a great addition to the department and to the town of Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. DePaul. Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to clarify for the board, this position became available when Andy Ungerson took another position in another community. Mr. John Luther from Building Department assumed Andy's position, and this is to fill John's previous position. So, with Mark's recommendation, I appoint Martin Allen to the position of local building inspector in the Burlington Building Department and ask that the board waive its 15-day waiting period.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded to waive the 15-day waiting period. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Welcome aboard, Marty.
Marty, congratulations. Congratulations.
Welcome to town.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DePaul.
Pleasure seeing you in person.
Well, don't brag too much.
Item 239, Lynn, do we know if anybody's gonna appear for this? No one's gonna appear for this?
Unless they send someone else, Jennifer, Ms. Kelly.
Do we have anyone out in the community on the internet that might be here for this?
Raise their hand with a *3 to let us know.
If you want to speak, hit *3 to raise your hand. So do we have anyone from the neighborhood out in the WebEx?
Yeah, this is Ravi Samavedam from Azure Group. I was hoping to give an introduction to the Azure Group if the time is right.
Yep, Ravi, we have you on the agenda. We will be there very shortly. This is item 239. You are the next one up.
Great, thank you.
So stand by, please. All right. Don't everyone from the community, I know this is something we approve every year. It's never been an issue to my recollection. And we have all the necessary opinions and comments. Does anybody have any comment on this one, or yes, Mr. Hogan?
When we make the motion, I'm assuming we will, could we make sure that all of these are listed, and then it becomes valid once someone from the staff has talked to them about it, just to confirm that they know what they are?
Sir?
Thank you.
So you should, why don't you make that,
All right. I make the motion that we approve the annual block party at College Road for 9/18/2021 with the conditions that are listed here. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that someone from the staff will talk to them, and this approval will be then granted at the time when they understand what those rules
So
are.
it'll be contingent upon contact with the staff?
Please.
Okay, do I have a second to that? Okay, all those in favor of approving the annual block party, College Road?
aye.
Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0.
Hi, this is Nicole Cronin. I'm on regarding the block party.
Well, Nicole, we just approved it.
Okay. So you don't need anything else from me?
No, not at all. We're good.
Someone from the staff will be calling you to go over some of the details to make sure that all the conditions are understood.
Wonderful. Everyone will be so excited.
All right, very good. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 240. It's recognition for Azure Group. Melissa, did you want to come up here for that? And we also have Ravi out in the WebEx. Ravi, now's your time to shine.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Economic Development Director up front, and we're gonna start with Melissa, and then we'll go to you, Ravi, okay?
Great.
Melissa,
Yes.
how did you?
Hello. Thank you. My name is Melissa Tintakos. I'm the Economic Development Director for the town of Burlington. And I'd like to, this evening, present proclamation to the Azure Group for fulfilling our economic development goals. And this is a great success story. Ravi, I'm very happy for you, the company, and for Burlington. The select board members here today, I think this really is fulfillment of some of the many years of work that you guys have put together. Obviously, this takes a team effort to get to this point. But Ravi, if you'll indulge me a little bit in some history here with you guys coming to town. 60 Blanchard actually was rezoned in January 2020, you may recall, at town meeting. Prior to that, there was some additional definitions that had been revised in our zoning bylaws. And then the transition for the by right use of life science at a couple parcels, in particular, 60 Blanchard Road. Had talked to Nordblum and some of their people on the leasing front. And this change really enabled them to position this property in a unique manner. And shortly after, Ravi and your team, Azura, came. And we were so excited for the type of facility that you put together, which is really a pharmaceutical manufacturing space. And I don't know if Ravi, you have additional words to share, or if you have the presentation you'd like to kind of share with the selectmen at this point.
Sure, I do have a slide deck. I can share my screen if that's okay.
Certainly, go ahead, Robbie.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, can you see the slide deck?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Azure Group, we are about 450 people nationwide. All the blue dots that you see on the map are our current locations, providing consulting services at a minimum, but depending on each region, we also have labs, we have clean rooms, training services, and so on. The green locations are new ones that we plan to move into in the future. So like I mentioned, we started off as a consulting firm. And so, that still happens to be the biggest part of our revenue, largest, part of our population workforce is in the consulting division. And we do a lot of project management, program management, helping startup companies, build facilities just like we built in Burlington. And that's, continues to be our biggest part of our revenue. We have 5 lab locations nationwide that do testing, microbiology, chemistry, biochemistry testing. The local one is in Framingham, Massachusetts. Clean rooms on demand, I'm going to talk a little bit more about in the subsequent slides. Our IT division provides services around computerized and electronic systems all around the biopharma industry. Our technical services is our calibration and maintenance division. So we have our own technicians, our own standards, and quality management systems to provide metrology services to the industry. And then our training centers are located in North Carolina, and they're a combination of electronic courses that we provide through a cloud-based platform all around biopharma. And we also have some clean rooms that are dedicated to provide training to the biopharma industry. Now I'm going to focus a little bit on clean rooms on demand, which is what the facility is on 60 Blanchard. So traditionally, biopharma companies that are going into clinical manufacturing for the first time, meaning it's the first time that they're going to put anything in a human clinical trial, they only have traditionally have had 2 options. They can go build their own facility, which takes time, effort, money, and resources, or they can provide their intellectual property to a third party, such as a contract manufacturing organization or a contract development and manufacturing organization called CMO or CDMO. Now, both of those options have a time as a major hurdle that these companies have to kind of go through, right? So if you're building your own facility, it takes 18 to 24 months. If you're waiting in line at a CMO these days, thanks to COVID, that has become the same as building your facility in terms of timelines. Looking at good CMOs, wait list is at least 18 months, if not more. Now, we saw this as an issue way before COVID happened. In 2015 and 2016, we did some projects in Cambridge where we, lack of a better phrase, pigeonholed a manufacturing facility in a high rise in Cambridge. And we did that a few times. And that's when we realized how expensive it can be, how time consuming it can be. And we decided to do something about that bottleneck that was really stopping innovation in the industry. And that's where we came up with this model called clean rooms on demand, which is a hybrid between those 2 traditional models. So this is really ideal for clients that want to get to the clinic really quick without having to wait in line at a CMO or without having to go build their own facility. So the vision of the company is really to accelerate the product development and manufacturing life cycle of critical therapies. And like I mentioned, this all started out of need of our clients that we saw in Cambridge. And that was back in 2016. In 2017, we built a facility in Waltham, a prototype facility, and that was a huge hit, which is why we came to Burlington for a much bigger facility. And what do we really do? We provide all the compliance services that our clients may not be familiar with because this is their first time going into that GMP or good manufacturing practices realm, which requires a lot of expertise about FDA regulations. So that's where we bring the science and the clients bring the science and we bring the compliance. So what is the business? So the facility in Burlington, for example, has modular clean rooms such as what you see on the screen here. And these are basically a room within a room. So, the Burlington facility is an open box, and then we have these rooms inside that have their own air controls, really enabling clinical manufacturing to happen in a quick fashion. And then we provide all the ancillary services and infrastructure controls that are expected for a GMP environment or a manufacturing environment. because again, our clients are starting up for the first time. So for them to go and hire all the expertise, have all the GMP infrastructure controls in place can be very daunting. So we said, you know what, you can focus on what your core capabilities are, which is the science and the process batch. You can even keep your intellectual property to yourself rather than sharing with a third party. And that's what they see as a value proposition. Um, so I've said enough about the business. What have our clients been saying? I mean, there's a lot here, but I'd like to just focus on this one here. This is Moderna talking about basically the Burlington facility and how they quickly were able to come to the facility, and they're actually onboarding as we speak. And they're going to basically relocate their clinical manufacturing operations from Norwood to Burlington, and basically use their Norwood site for commercial manufacturing. So in the future, we should expect a lot of development and clinical manufacturing out of Burlington, including the COVID-19 vaccines, whether it be the boosters or the juvenile vaccines in the future. So we are super excited to have Moderna as our client. The one personal story from myself is I was the acting head of quality at Moderna in 2015 and 2016, where the whole clean rooms on demand idea kind of started. And now, we've come up full circle where Moderna is our biggest client. So for me personally, it's really very rewarding. But of course, for Azure and for Burlington, it's a great feather in our caps for sure. Now, why did we choose Burlington? Well, like with any real estate, right? Location, location, location. So, proximity to Cambridge, which is our client pool, was key for us. Proximity to talent pool. There's obviously a lot of colleges in and around Burlington. Proximity to other biotech companies. We have AMRI down the street. We have many other potential clients in and around the area. So we like that quite a lot. And then in terms of permitting, it was easier than other towns that we have experienced because of similar businesses that are in the area. So that helped us quite a bit. And then last but not least, of course, great amenities, especially where we are. It's a stone's throw away to a variety of different, eating, shopping options. So that was great as well. And what is in it for Burlington? Obviously, we're going to bring a lot of biotech businesses to Burlington. Our facility is not just for one or two clients. It's a multi-process, multi-product facility. Granted, Moderna is our biggest client right now in Burlington, but there's, if and when they move out, there's possibility of other potential biotech clients coming in. So Burlington gets to play in accelerating their timelines in terms of clinical manufacturing, in addition to just Azure. So that definitely is something to look forward to. In terms of job creations, that facility alone creates approximately 35 new jobs as our employees, but clients will also bring their workforce, so approximately 100 over the lifetime, not necessarily all at once. But we're thinking around 100 full-time employees that clients will bring on site as well. And along the same lines, the jobs that are being created are not hourly jobs. They're really technical, high-paying jobs. Most of them require bachelor's degrees or higher. And then obviously bringing those sort of talent into the town, by default creates a possibility for the economy to thrive even more than it is now. So that's it for my slide deck. I'm happy to answer any questions from you folks, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present this.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Melissa. Mr. Severino. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to add a couple of acknowledgements here. As you can tell, we're very excited to have Azure come to town here in Burlington. I just wanted to acknowledge all the teamwork. Melissa mentioned it earlier, but great debt of gratitude to town meeting for having the foresight to rezone that property. Planning board, planning department, building department, board of health for sure. The board of health staff, conservation, all the land use departments really did a lot of work to get these guys in the door quickly, and I'm very grateful for all the teamwork that was displayed in order to get this done. And again, we're really happy to have Azure here. I don't know, Melissa, do you have anything you want to add, or should we just have somebody read the proclamation?
Yeah, it would be great if someone could read the proclamation.
Thank you, Nick.
I'll come around.
All right, Ravi, we
Buy
gotta
your bus
have
driver's hat, that's what I'm gonna get you.
Vice Chairman Nick Priest read the proclamation for you.
Just listen to his voice, he has to read it.
All right, so here is the proclamation. Whereas Azura Group has selected Burlington, Massachusetts for its latest East Coast Clean Room on Demand operation. And whereas a key aspect of Burlington's economic development strategy is attracting and retaining such companies. And whereas Clean Rooms on Demand offers pharmaceutical manufacturing space for small and fast-growing businesses in the region to better compete with the rapid discovery of life-saving biopharmaceutical treatments, vaccines, and medical devices. And whereas Azura Group's new Clean Rooms on Demand facility will bring approximately 150 new jobs and new economic opportunities to the town of Burlington. And whereas Azura Group's Clean Rooms on Demand facility will continue to establish Burlington as a leader in pharmaceutical innovation and support the growth of other companies. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Burlington, hereby proclaim that the Azura Group is gratefully welcomed to the Town of Burlington and its growing life sciences ecosystem. Signed by the Board this, the 13th day of September, 2021.
Thank you, Nick.
Mr. Priest. Okay, I'm gonna go to the board if they have any comments or questions. Mr. Runyon.
No, just, welcome Azor to Burlington, part of our fast-growing, cluster of, biotech firms that, in the last, several years, we've been able to accumulate here, and it's, that's in no small part to, as Paul alluded to, the, good planning and vision from, multiple, number of people in town here, so congratulations to everybody involved, and again, welcome to Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I'll just echo what Mike just said, thank everybody involved in this, and welcome to Burlington. Congratulations, nice job, Melissa.
Thank you.
Staff.
Mr. Hogan.
Thank you. I think it's, we've proven over the years that when we all work together, wonderful things happen. Going way back to when Northeastern came in, they were set up, everybody came together, kumbaya, and things happened, and it's nice to see that the town can be that cooperative with wonderful companies coming into town, and Melissa to help coordinate it all. Congratulations to you also.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Mr. Priest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just want to, to Paul's point about thanking town meeting and everyone involved, when we look at the landscape of Burlington, the puzzle that is our community, I think Azure is a really important piece to that puzzle. These clean rooms on demand, when we think about the education and incubation portion that Northeastern has, and we think about the R&D and the manufacturing pieces that other companies have and other companies want to bring to Burlington, what you have to offer is very unique and allowing for flexibility of growth. And when we talk about the life cycle of businesses and retaining businesses over the longevity of their growth and life cycles, it's a big piece of that. So obviously, thank you to everyone involved that made this happen. Thank you to Azure for choosing Burlington and being a part of this process and fitting into our economic development strategy. And I look forward to wonderful things in the future. So Robbie, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Priest. Ravi and Melissa, I just want to say that my years on the board, I love seeing these new innovative businesses and ideas come to town. And I know in the past, we've been given the opportunity to tour Northeastern's Innovations Campus. Other companies, when Millipore came here, got to see Millipore, we got to see Desktop Metals, all these businesses that we talk about, we tout, I personally think it's a good idea for us to go there if we can, so that when we tell people how proud we are of these companies, we can explain, well, we know it because we were there, we saw this, we saw that. So through Melissa, I'd like to see if somehow we can arrange a tour for any board members who want to go take a look and see what we are all so excited about.
Absolutely, that should not be a problem. We can help coordinate that through Melissa, no problem.
Great, thank you, and again, thank you to everyone in the process. Melissa, we're gonna keep you up here for a while, because you've got a busy schedule tonight, but Robbie, thank you, welcome to Burlington. And anything further from the board? Nothing? Okay, well, welcome to Burlington, Ravi.
Thanks, Ravi.
Thanks, Robbie.
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to working with you in the future.
Okay. Do we have, no? All right. Melissa, we're going to keep you up here for a little while. Item 241. All right, Melissa, this is your 1-year recap. Fire away.
Well, to all the selectmen, thank you, select board members, thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about the work that's been going on over the last 12 months. Again, for the record, my name is Melissa Tintopoulos. I work as the Economic Development Director for the town. In this portion, or this item for tonight, is really a general update. And in your packet, I put together a summary matrix of the initiatives led by the Economic Development Office. And these have been derived over a course of many years. Most of them are rooted, the objectives, or the initiatives, I should say, are rooted in the master plan. And then when I came in January 2020, I had many stakeholder interviews with yourselves, with community members, with town meeting members that help reinforce and outline the work plan going forward. So if you can see at this point on the left, and those of you maybe who might be watching from home, on your screen is a version that I will have up on the website for access under my the Economic Development website, so you can see that. And I'll scroll through it a little bit. I won't go through everything that's in the packet. I'll kind of just highlight it, and then we can kind of go through questions from there. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see here. So this is kind of a look at what the outline looks like, and I tried to put some links into it so you can see what I'm referencing. But from the outset, we talked about a few things, 12 months ago. That was still, we had started out maybe 18 months ago before that with bigger plans, and we had to kind of shift quickly and address a lot of the COVID impact needs for our businesses. And I think we did that really successfully, working together with many of the department heads. But I would like to step back and not just focus on COVID response, but some of the bigger initiatives that we laid out. And the biggest thing I feel that is kind of invisible in this room at this point, but is our web presence. We launched, over the last 12 months, we launched a website called Bring Me to Burlington. And along the same lines, we launched a social media campaign. And this is really our shingle, our kind of wayfinding, if you will, to Burlington for businesses, for employers currently, employees who are looking to come to town. And it's really our first 1.0 version. It's not fixed. We will be improving it as we go. So if you go there now, it's not the final, but it is a first version of our website. And we are seeing traffic already with our social media campaign. One of the biggest things people are looking for are commercial office space. So that's one aspect or one element of the website we want to enhance. Currently, we do not have a searchable database for office space, but that is something we want to look forward to. As the months kind of roll in and we collect more data, I'd like our team, it's Sperling Interactive, to come to the select board and make a presentation so you can ask them directly some of the questions and kind of some of the analytics that are behind the searches and what's driving us to tweak, adjust, and improve our website and the social media targeting over time. So that was one of our biggest accomplishments over the last 12 months. Shifting gears, I'd like to mention that two of the other big things that people were really concerned about when I first came in and have been so through the pandemic has been small business viability, the town center vitality, as well as the large-scale commercial scene and our retail sector. So trying to curate and tailor what our interventions can be has been part of my work. Working with planning, working with the chamber, obviously, the select board. We've been putting together kind of pieces of the puzzle to help make an impact in these realms. So with that, I'll talk a little bit more about the town center placemaking, but just to highlight the fact that placemaking, as you know, we started with a grant from Mass Development, that was Mass Downtown Initiative, and we got to start thinking and conceptualizing how the center could be a different space, how it could be more activated, and how we could engage our businesses. So that resulted in a placemaking proposal that we'll talk a little bit more about. But also along those same lines, we were able to, I won't go through all this, but work with the state as well to secure a few additional grants that came out of some of the funding for COVID. So that's the Rapid Recovery Program, as well as collaborating with MAPC on a long-term redevelopment plan for the town center. You'll have updates on those in upcoming months as well, but just so you know that those are underway as well from the state. Okay. And then moving on, I'd like to point your attention, again, you can click on these documents to the Mall Road and Middlesex Turnpike initiative. This one I'm really excited about for Burlington. We received a Mass Development grant and we supplied some of our own funding. So together that brought about $120,000 to a strong community-driven plan that has just got together, and we are about to kick off the engagement with the public within the next week. So I know the Economic Development Liaison Group, which is, Selectman Runyon, Selectman Priest, as well as planning board members have been, kind of updated with the efforts under this plan. But it's just, I think it's important for Burlington to kind of take a step back and assess the land uses, take in information from a real estate economic analysis perspective, and then as a community, create our own plan and vision of what we'd like to see down Mall Road and Middlesex Turnpike, versus being reactive to individual parcel site projects. That's still a part of it, but once we put together a vision, we can also we can be explicit to developers and share what we would like to see over the course of time. And then we are able to guide and shape development over the next 20, 30 years. So that is a long range effort, but it's rooted in current day data. And you'll be hearing a lot more about that as we kind of launch the community outreach component of that. I'll pause right there if there are any questions on those kind of larger initiatives.
Gentlemen, anybody have any questions at this point? Nope.
Okay.
Actually, I do have two quick questions. Did you say people are calling looking for commercial office space?
What we're finding, they're in the organic searches. They're looking for office space. So the theme that comes up that we're finding, at least in the early stages right now, as we're putting out our social media postings, is what's available commercial-wise in Burlington. And then it leads us to our site. But what we've had, once we have our site, when they go to our site, we don't have a searchable database yet. And that's one thing we've been figuring out how to best do.
No, I was just curious because it sounds like people are still starting to look for office space, which we thought might be an issue, but it sounds like it's not.
Right, I think, I think that's what would be a great, discussion item for Sperling Interactive, because some of the other things that you'll list at the top 5 are life science in Burlington, amenities in Burlington, the cost of living in Burlington. So you'll see the gamut once we put a report together for it.
Nothing else.
Okay. So, the other 2 updates I want to just give. If you recall, early in the pandemic, we had an opportunity to make a proposal to the state for a couple different issues that we were observing, at least immediately at the time. And one was the high level of unemployment, especially in the hospitality and restaurant industries. But at the same time, we saw an increase in demand for jobs in the life science and healthcare industries. So just to think holistically, you know, going back to, you know, Ravi and the Azure Group's interest, you know, part of why they come here is for the talent pool. People are trained, they know what they're doing, and they're within, you know, a reasonable drive. So to support that, even on the very initial entry levels, we developed a workforce program with that funding. And that's, we did it in collaboration with Mass Hire and Bedford. And that was really, I would say, almost a grant program for many of the life science and healthcare programs that we have accessible through Mass Hire. And as of today, we have 11 people enrolled in the programs. 4 of them are Burlington residents. The others are either Bedford or nearby or had worked in Burlington. And our hopes are to, you know, engage them and track them and hope seeing their kind of life change and new opportunities within Burlington. So we're excited about that program. And the other one was our micro business grant program. We submitted a proposal for $100,000 for Burlington. 9 businesses or 9 grants, as you can see here, were issued for a total of $87,500. That left us a little bit, we had, plus the admin, we had about $17,000 pooled with some other communities at this point. So we've distributed 9 grants for micro businesses. That was really to help anyone who had 5 employees or less, but they also had to meet income requirements. So I don't think it was able to help as many people as we would have liked, because there was high income criteria that are kind of many income criteria that they had to meet. So at this point, we have 9, and the remaining money will be pooled with other communities so that anyone, even still, if you see this and you're a Burlington business, micro business, and you're interested in grants still, you can apply to it. We just have pooled the funds to help more people as the program comes to an end.
Mr. Chairman, one quick
Yes,
question.
Mr. Hogan.
Is this privileged information, or is this the kind of information it would be good for us to know which companies and who's taking advantage of this?
Yes, I could provide a spreadsheet of which companies.
Thank you.
Select Board Hogan, we did have the first round of grantees were able to come to a board meeting it seems like a while ago now, but
Yeah.
I think the first 5 folks that were awarded a grant came to a board meeting and sort of talked about their businesses. So we can probably get the rest of them, if they would be willing to stop by and speak to the board as well.
I'm sorry, maybe.
Yes, Mr. Hogan.
Is this, not just this, but I mean, are the things that you are doing in the progress you're making worthy of a meeting where we're just talking about this? Because I'm thinking this is, you know, we could spend a couple of hours doing this and we wouldn't do justice unless I think we really paid attention to it. No one needs to answer me now, but I'm just suggesting.
If I'm hearing you correctly, a selectmen's meeting just on economic development?
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do something like
All
that.
right, so I can talk to Paul about that, and Melissa, and we'll try to work something out.
What some communities have done, they've had economic development summits or like an annual kind of meeting. We bring in some other, you know, I would say real estate professionals, and we can kind of give some broad brushstrokes of the region as well, if that's helpful.
Actually,
Not just
We won't
Burlington.
have just the select board, we'll set up a meeting
Okay.
that, just a economic development update on its own.
Yeah, we did something similar 4 or 5 years ago.
All right.
Up at Grandview, but pretty well attended.
Okay, good idea, Paul.
So I guess those were 2 updates kind of from the middle of COVID, that the money that came in, you know, has been spent, and, you know, we're excited for both the workforce development and the micro business, grant program had its challenges, but I think we've done the best we can to make sure we get the money out to those who needed it. So those were kind of the bigger highlights. I think I'd just like to touch on one other thing would be, if you can recall, over the last 12 months, we've also formed a task force to meet businesses' immediate needs around outdoor seating requests and temporary activity requests. And that has been received with a lot of enthusiasm. In fact, many businesses have asked me how we can make that permanent. So I've talked with, our town administrator, obviously Paul Sagarino, our planning director, Kristen Kasner, as well as our department heads who've been part of the task force to explore how we can make that, consider maybe a bylaw proposal that would allow for some flexibility or seasonal seating or something to that effect. And so hopefully if we can stay on track with something like that, I'd like to bring something to the select board, and with a goal of bringing it to something to town meeting in January. So with that, that concludes the highlights, and you can
One other
obviously see
thing
more.
is, to that point that you and I had spoken of, there are some restaurants who kind of built into their situation outdoor seating. And it is part of their site. And it's wonderful to be able to have a restaurant where that is part of the regular seating in a sense. And I would like to see those people have more opportunities, but also other restaurants that didn't build it in to work with you or others to find a way of creating a situation where it can be built into their surroundings. Because the few restaurants that did that in the beginning are doing well, even on bad days. People want to go out, but still don't want to go inside yet. They have a number of options, and other restaurants should be able to take advantage of that if we can work that out somehow.
Thank you, yes. That would be part of what the proposal would include, to facilitate that and more so remove the barriers to that, to encourage that.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything further on the one-year recap? Before we move on to the next agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Mr. Priest.
I just want to say thank you. I mean, I took a look through, I know that Mike and I have been more involved than the rest of the board when it comes to the going-ons of economic development here in town, but, folks who are watching, folks who may see this, you pulled together 14 programs, initiatives, and efforts over the last year alone during a pandemic. So on top of helping the businesses, big and small, manage through what has been a massive shift in how everyone does business, you also pulled together, I'll subtract that out from here, 13 programs, initiatives, and efforts to help continue making us stronger from an economic development standpoint. And I don't think that this board can thank you enough for that. We're lucky to have you. The notion of the website, I think, we've all provided some feedback to that. I think that, from the get-go, when you and I talked about it, we decided not to let perfection, be the devil in the room and stop us from getting this website up. And I think that it's proving to be an initial success that can grow and evolve, like a lot of digital assets, which is fantastic. The fact that the workforce development program is affecting residents here in town is huge, right? We're not just helping businesses, we're helping people. And I think that's not something that should be lost on anyone who sees this or hears about what's going on here in town. And the fact that, you didn't just decide to do a whole bunch of surveys and, like planning efforts, right? This is a mixture of, finding grants to move things forward in actionable ways, which is huge. And so to that end, I think that we should absolutely look to formalize some sort of economic development subcommittee or group beyond what Mike and I and the planning board have been helping you do just conversationally, to ensure that you have a deeper level of support, from elected officials and staff as we move forward regardless of what may come, you know, from a societal standpoint. And then my only question, Melissa, is how much funding, do you know how much funding we've managed to capture in the last year? Ballpark? Give or take a million, like however you want?
I'd have to get back to you because I think we did an estimate on, you know, between the workforce grant, which was pretty significant, and then mass development, it was close to 400,000, if not more.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Just to point out, when Melissa sat down and introduced herself, she said she was working as the Economic Development Director. You are the Economic Development Director.
Yeah. No question.
Well, thank you for
You're blushing.
those
Melissa.
kind words. Thank you.
All right, you want to move on to the Town Center Pocket Park?
Yes. This might take me just a quick minute, one moment. Okay. This one's graphic, so I think it's important that we kind of are able to share the screen as well. So this item is the one I mentioned, but item 242 is the Town Center Placemaking Proposal. And I'd mentioned that we received a grant from the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative, and that helped us to get funding to start rethinking our town center. And if you go online, you can look at what we call the Placemaking Playbook. And what placemaking is, it's really a variety of things. Planners love placemaking. The intention is to do installations or programmings to rethink our built environment, bring people together, hopefully encourage more civic engagement. But from the economic development perspective, it's also a really cool way to activate the business community, bring in new foot traffic, bring in fresh customers who may be coming in for the first time or didn't know about things, and you bring in these people for some of these placemaking efforts, and you encourage and support the businesses that are adjacent to the space or the area that you're doing the placemaking. And so with this, in our plan, in that placemaking playbook, we looked at a couple areas. The proposal here before you today is, taking one of the recommendations, one of the sites, and exploring how we can put an installation together for the community. The town center is unique in that the majority of that space, other than maybe Terry Ave, is privately held land in one way or another, so we don't have as much control over it. So everything we do is a collaboration or a partnership with the private sector. And this area in particular is a site that we're looking at doing a proof of concept. It's right by Sweet Ginger in the parking lot, adjacent on the side, kind of, if you can see True North from here. The reasons why we're doing it, as I had mentioned, they're rooted in the master plan, as you can see there. It also was born out of the recommendations from our playbook. But it's also true that a lot of our businesses, have suffered with, the lack of customers coming through and revenue sales that have diminished. The property owners in our corridor have been working with their business tenants and really helping them, survive in terms of arranging leasing and rent payments that are extended over time. So that's one way that they've, supported the businesses. But this project, as we'll kind of go on to see, is trying to inject new life into the town center. So this is from the playbook, this page or picture, and those were the two sites. Again, the smaller one to the top is the area by Sweet Ginger, and the larger one that hopefully we can do if this one works out was closer behind the Shell station. The goals of the program, you can see here, really build a sense of ownership in place for the residents and local businesses, foster community and connections between people, engaging local businesses and residents, and then provide those physical interventions and unique programming to enliven the area. So, I'm going to this. This is a conceptual design at the bottom left. The plan is to lay down some AstroTurf. We've been working with Mike Murray and Murray Hills to explore painting the walls and installing lights. We're also looking at doing some asphalt painting to enhance that connection. If you can kind of, I don't know if my marker will say it. This area right here, that's Moran Avenue. And unfortunately, that is a private way, so we can't just close it off. So we have to, again, work with our private sector partners. But the goal is to market so it's safer as people drive through. And potentially on a weekend or event, we'd be able to close off that area and direct people down to Skilton and enable that to be more of a pedestrian hub in that area. So aside from, looking for your approval for the pocket park, that's what we're calling it, the idea is also to gauge request your input on a program idea for the area, which would be a business open house and beer garden, and for this area over a one-day period. So the event would only be one day. We'd coordinate with other businesses and Murray Hill, as well as Mo Santangelo. He's a property manager across the way, across the street, or Cambridge Street. And the idea would be to, pretty much bring people together, kick off the park as a place that's unique and different for Burlington, and hopefully, increase business activity. The idea would be try to gauge, find a metrics, if sales have increased on a day average, try to figure out how to benchmark it to see if we've had an impact. The other idea had been to, measure pedestrian activity before and after, just so we can get some metrics and see if this, even works. So that's the end of the PowerPoint presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Let's start with Mr. Runyon. Any questions on Pocket Park?
Actually, yeah, thank you, Jim. Melissa, and thank you for everything you do for us. Are you asking for permission tonight for the one-day license for October?
Just input.
Just
input.
Okay.
Ideas or comments.
No, that's fine. I know, we've had many discussions about this, so I think, I'm certainly in support of the efforts underway down there. So I'm excited to actually see some of those first paintbrush strokes on some of the pavements or the murals that we've been talking about. So, but yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great idea. I hope it's successful and brings more foot traffic to that area.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon. Mr. Morandi?
No, just a great effort. I think it'll all work out fine. I think that the group you have get together is quite adept at doing this, and can't wait to see how it all turns out. And hope how are the businesses down there handling this concept right now?
We've got a lot of enthusiasm from certain businesses. At this point, some of them, the concept is still pretty unusual and different. There hasn't been as much of a culture in creating kind of what I think is in some ways an informal business district there. I think they'll see, the hope is that they'll see it by working together and kind of bring in more activity. And so that's the goal. On this piece, I did mention that it has been, a collaboration with also Coldwell Bankers Realty, the Top Home team. That's one of the tenants in this space. They've been a big advocate for exploring a mural, and they already had some additional programming ideas. The fitness studio down there had ideas of maybe, using the space for, outdoor fitness. It's really, again, trying to allow people to, provoke their thought and then kind of help them conceptualize what's possible there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Melissa, are you targeting the site directly next to Sweet Ginger as the primary site, and then the one closer to the street is like a fallback?
The one closer to Cambridge Street is not under consideration currently. It's a recommendation out of the playbook, but because these are on private property at this point in time, we're focusing on the smaller one.
Sure, okay. I mean, I love the idea of the one closer to the street just for visibility's sake. But I mean, I think that if we're doing a big opening, la-di-da, that we should have enough of a draw. I would love, for that day kickoff, the idea of this beer garden, which I love the idea of that. Two things I'd like to try to push for. One is having local business representation. So, businesses up and down that stretch that, like if they can be there, like have somebody there for representation in some way. That way folks on the outskirts who might not be within walking distance or comfortable walking distance still have some kind of representation in that area. I think would be really nice. And then two, in terms of the business kicking it off, if we can have somebody local doing that, I'd like to see that in terms of just keeping everything Burlington as much as possible. If we can't do that, I understand, but the notion of having somebody kind of, from Burlington run the event, I think would be really, really nice. And then did we ever land on the cost of the mural or the lack thereof of funding for the cost of a mural?
We have not landed on it yet.
Okay.
So, the Selectman Priest is talking about a mural potential on, these two walls, as you can see at the top left corner in this graphic. There's two large kind of canvas-like walls. It's a work in progress. We met with the department heads of arts and civics from the high school. Mike Murray's exploring kind of prepping and painting a base coat color to at least set it up, even if it's a longer term project with the high school students. That's our goal at this point, is to have the youth involved in the mural process.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I mean, like Mike Espejo and I both said, we go out there with some buckets of paint and take care of it for you. I mean, if we're looking for cost savings. And then something else that I mentioned that I think, we should definitely follow up on is for the day of the event, having a specific QR code to capture on-site survey so folks can open their phones and fill, and again, it has to be a short survey, so maybe no more than 5 quick questions, so that we can capture immediate feedback around their experience during that specific beer garden day, and then having a QR code in the park, the pocket park, so when folks visit it, again, they can give almost live, for them, feedback that we can collect and look at, and they're not going out looking for it. We're not trying to send something out after the fact that they might miss. Just to try and capture as much, to your point, as many metrics as possible around, these two things, so we can see kind of how it's going. And then I love the idea of, talking to the businesses about pedestrian foot traffic and, maybe gauging like a certain percentile increase or, status quo or even decrease around,
Right.
The day. So, awesome. Yeah, I think this is great. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a great idea, but do we have enough time to put this all together by October 9th, or whatever the date is? Yeah.
The date is proposed for October 9th. I think in collaboration with Murray Hills, I think we can do that.
Okay. Is that whole parking lot going to be kept empty, or cars going to be able to drive through there, or?
After hearing feedback, I think there would be the process would be to work with the police department and figure out what would need to be done for, street closure and kind of detour. There's some additional details that need to be worked out, and there is a potential to, move back the date. So that was just kind of a target date at this point.
Could, and I don't know if Joe's available, but could the alcohol subcommittee be involved in some of these meetings?
Definitely, yes.
All right. Yeah, I agree with Nick also that even businesses around Burlington, if they're gonna be able to come here also, is this Crafted gonna control who's gonna be in there?
In terms of the proposal for the programming, Crafted was a company that's kind of, the idea is, at least, that they would help facilitate and organize some of the safety measures and getting, how you would kind of control the beer garden itself. So tonight was just to hear, feedback if this is something we'd like to pursue. And based on, tonight, we would set up the next steps in terms of the approval process with the subcommittee and, confirm a date, as well as, the engagement with the businesses. I have to say that it's envisioned that these are town center businesses. The focus has been on the town center and the small enterprises along the Route 3 corridor, 3A corridor.
Even across the street from Cambridge? I mean, on the other side of Cambridge Street?
Yes, so essentially everything that's in the town center overlay district, if you can imagine that. So that still includes Terry Ave, it includes up towards, the shops at Simon's.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Melissa, I think it's a great idea. It's a great public-private partnership. The only question I have is, have you discussed the fact that Mass DOT is right behind there, and they're constantly going back and forth? So any road closures or detours might affect them, or?
Their Mass DOT at a high level is aware of our concept for creating a pocket park. We haven't talked about details of closure, and it would be only a day and probably about a 6-hour period for a closure max.
They can go out Skilton.
So that would have to be explored, so I'll note that.
All right, I just wanted to raise that point, that's all. Other than that, I think it's a great idea. And I think, I wouldn't be surprised if you see it expand or grow to other areas. But again, innovative, and we like innovative, so. Anything further? Okay, this was just an update. So we can move, Mr. Secretary,
Just get a quick vote on that, that the board
Oh, really?
is
All right.
in favor of the pocket park
okay,
concept.
in concept, all right.
We'll be back to you with
All right, so I'll be
more
looking for a motion to.
details on the actual event.
Okay, I had it here as an update, otherwise I would have done that, but I'm looking for a vote of support or against for the pocket park.
Make the motion that we approve the concept as presented by Melissa tonight for Pocket Park.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? 5-0 to support the concept.
Now, you remember what happened the last time we voted on a concept?
I'll do.
I'll let that go.
Okay, next agenda item. Alyssa, MBTA bus stop.
The MBTA resumes Route 351. This is an update. This bit of news is exciting in that those of you who follow transit within our town know that given COVID and the different shutdowns, MBTA ended the running of the 351. And that, connection hit Billerica, Bedford, Burlington, and a connection to Alewife. And so, as the summer was kind of the start of summer, MBTA reached out and was looking to work with the town of Burlington, how they could restart the 351. And given, our relationship really with 3rd Avenue and Wegmans, we knew was a critical source of transportation for a lot of hourly workers in that corridor in particular. And so we, essentially I went out on site several times with the MBTA and the stakeholders down Third Ave, because the way they planned to bring back the 351 was a little different. So instead of running length-long routes, their plan, as they've started to, as of the end of last month, just 2 weeks ago, has been to do a layover and then have a connection to the 350 at Third Avenue. So it's pretty critical because we didn't have a layover spot. So it was a negotiation of where we were gonna put this route in order to connect. We gave them a few different options. Our town engineer was also great. Tom Hayes provided some maps and some options, but they all met with different challenges, if you can imagine. So this is the route. The short-term layover is going to now be on Third Avenue in that orange rectangular spot. That's by Archer. And in this area, it didn't affect, the restaurants or the storefronts as much as further down. So this is the temporary layover spot that has been selected and that we ran by Wegmans in terms of the best location, because they had also offered their parking lot. But that was, not a great location because some of the parking would be used on high demand peak areas, and then we'd have to move the bus again. So I'd just like to share that with you, and I think the last thing I'll leave you with is the fact that, one area that when we were looking out in Third Ave was this area by the Wegmans. They actually support this concept, is in the future, if it's possible, to explore a build out for a little curb cut, because unfortunately the roads right in front of here are too narrow for any type of layover. Even 5 minutes, it creates too much of a log jam for traffic because the roads are so narrow. So that's just something we've shared with the planning board and wanted to share that with you to have that on your radar.
Thank you. We'll start with this. Mr. Hogan, any questions on this, on the bus?
No, thank you.
Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that this is great. I think that, public transportation is definitely a chicken egg scenario where, if we're not providing it, people aren't gonna use it. And even when we do provide it, it takes a while for people to start using it. And so it leaves us in a bit of a pickle. But, I think that, and I also think the layover isn't great, but it's a solve. And I appreciate the MBTA, working with us to find that, so that we can get that route back up and running. So, thank you and everybody else for all your efforts on this.
Thank you, Mr. Priest. Ms. Moretti? Mr. Runyon?
No, sir.
No, I have nothing either. Thank you, Melissa. Last item from Melissa would be the priority development sites, agenda item 244.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, do we need to approve that in any way?
Oh,
Or
do
is
we have
this-
to approve the bus stops?
According to Tom Hayes, it's not technically a granted location, so there's no vote necessary.
It's temporary, right?
It's temporary.
Okay. Moving on home, Melissa.
Last item, I feel like everyone's sick of me, is our priority development site proposal. Pull that up to share that sheet, PowerPoint as well.
Mr. Hogan, I think this adds to your point of having the economic meeting on its own night. No, I'm not, because it does cross, so many different layers of our town.
Thank you, Chairman Tigas. So transitioning to the final item would be the priority development sites. And this is a proposal, I'd like to share it with the select board in that as we develop this application for the state, it would have to be a town meeting vote ultimately. So currently, we have 43, it's a 43D designation, and it's from the state, which helps enable and advance the expediting of development for certain sites that have been designated. So you get this designation, and we already currently have one, and I'm forgetting which one it is. It's a Gutierrez property, and I believe it's South Bedford. But we have one site in there currently, and what we'd like to do is augment the designation so we could include many of the sites that we have already seen change from a industrial zone to our high-rise or soon-to-be innovation district zone. And at this point, it used to be that the 43D designation allowed us additional funding to market the sites. Currently, there's no funding. However, they do market these sites at the state level, especially for interstate interest for people who are coming from other states or other countries. They go to one of these lists first. So that was one reason to move something like this forward. And then it also helps leverage smaller community development grants, things that, Kristen Kasner had mentioned, down Blanchard Road, the Community One-Stop Grant. If we can show them that several of our sites have a 43D designation, then that's going to be put us in a better position to secure some different type of state community development grants. So this is still a work in progress, but I just wanted to share this update with you at this time, given that, the application would be submitted after we confirm with our property owners, and then it'll come back to your board for a vote of support to move it on to town meeting or not.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Runyon, any questions?
I do. Quickly, the 43D, do we have any sites currently that have the 43D designation?
We do, and I will get those to you because at this moment I did not write them
Okay,
down.
that's
But
fine.
I think we have at least 2 sites currently designated.
So some of the properties that we rezoned in May, we can submit those along with the potential new ones coming up in September. Right?
Correct, that's the goal. So on this sheet here, you can see as of January 2020, when we first changed, it was Summit Drive and 3 Van de Graaff and actually 60 Blanchard, which is not on here now. But that was when we first did that. The planning board and town meeting supported that the zoning change. So subsequent to that, we've had the following bullet item properties, and then at the very bottom you see the ones that are coming in September, so just in a couple weeks, and those will be proposed for town meeting for the same thing. But all of them together now would have the innovation district designation, and the goal is to share that with the state that these are sites that we are interested in seeing life science development or redevelopment.
Okay, and just, I see a little footnote that planning board voted unfavorably on 2
Yes.
of the Wall Street sites. Can you just, in a Reader's Digest version, what the issues were down there?
Yes, I think that was concern around the retail uses currently in some of the spots. So we have to kind of understand better what their concerns are with that.
I don't know if we're gonna be talking, are we gonna be voting on this later?
Yes, if you wish to take a position, yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Morandi?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate, I too would like to know more about why the planning board voted unfavorably on those 2 properties. Just so we have a better understanding, if we are going to take a position on it, to have a better alignment.
Yes.
Mr. Hogan? Okay, and I'm good as well. Okay, anything further from Melissa? Okay, you're all set, Melissa.
Okay, thank you for your patience and time with the updates. I appreciate that.
Okay, item number 245 is an update discussion from the Board of Health. Mr. Weiner, Mrs. Luminello, I'm sorry, Dr. Weiner, and Mrs. Luminello, are you there?
Tell him he's on mute.
You're on mute.
Dr. Saltzman.
Oh, and Dr. Saltzman is with us as well. Dr. Weiner, you are on mute.
I am, thank you, members of the select board, our town administrator, who has been so helpful and supportive of the board. Thank you for having us this evening. Hello, I'm Ed Weiner, and I'm chairman of the Town Board of Health. With me tonight are Susan Luminello, Director of Public Health, and Dr. Wayne Saltzman, a longtime Board of Health member and noted physician and scientist. The Board of Health, we've been very busy. Not only are we busy with COVID-19 associated work, but as you know, we need to follow a lot of other communicable diseases while development and redevelopment continue in the town, as does food and environmental inspections. So many new restaurants are coming to Burlington, while new and established public health programs continue to be offered to the community. One big one this coming Saturday, Household Hazardous Waste Day. What's going on with COVID? Well, I have the approximate data for the town. I don't have tonight's numbers yet, but the last numbers note that our population of 27,819, 72.4% of those in town have had at least one dose of vaccine. And it's estimated that about 67% have been fully vaccinated. COVID tests over the last 2 weeks from members of this community have been 2,684 with 66 positive tests. That gives us a positivity rate of 2.46%. We are in the yellow, as they say, and things are very consistent. Just to let everyone know that you can look at data almost every day is updated on the Burlington Board of Health website. It's very informative, and it is provides you a lot of answers to questions that you might have. Susan, you would like to take it from here?
Yes, hi, good evening. This is Susan. So I want to thank the board for having us tonight. And I'd just like to reiterate, what Dr. Weiner said about the dashboard. Please go there if you're looking for information. If you need an explanation of the data, please call the Board of Health office. We're very happy to talk any residents through that and get them the information that they would like to have. I'm going to let Dr. Saltzman talk a little bit more about COVID in particular with regards to the most current information with regards to COVID, but I would like to remind residents that we are still doing case investigation and case management. So if you test positive, whether you're vaccinated or not, we get that data. We will be giving you a call. It's either going to be the Board of Health or it's going to be the Massachusetts contact tracing team. If you test positive and you have questions and you haven't heard from us, please feel free to reach out to us. We can walk you through the requirements. I think there's a lot of confusion now about what a close contact is, who needs to isolate and quarantine. We can walk everyone through that. And I just want to let people know that we are continuing to do that for residents and for the schools. So we're still working very closely with the schools with regards to getting people in isolation and quarantine who need to be there.
I guess I'll pick it up from here. Thanks, Susan. And Dr. Weiner, thank you for asking me to join you and Susan tonight. And board members, a pleasure to see you all again. So I think I really just want to talk about two things very briefly. One is what it means to have a successful vaccination campaign for any vaccine. Obviously, we're talking about COVID now. We're soon going to be talking about flu. A successful vaccination campaign is based on three things, a trilogy, so to speak. One is you need to get as much vaccine into as many people as possible. That's the vaccination rate. Dr. Weiner mentioned that Massachusetts is currently at 67%, which is wonderful. The country is at about 54% of fully vaccinated. And that's great. Everybody talks about the 70%, the herd immunity, but at the end of the day, getting vaccine to the most people possible is key. The second part of the trilogy is having an effective vaccine. And we hear the word effectiveness every day, all the time. So the vaccines were found to be in the initial trials, 90 plus, 94, 95% efficacy. In the field, in the real world, they've been maybe a little less, maybe 70, 80%. But what does that mean? And I think this is a source of confusion for a lot of people. Last year, the flu vaccine was just under 50% effective. So my father-in-law, said, so does that mean it only works half the time? No. Effectiveness means that if you have a 50% effective vaccine, once you get the vaccine, your risk of having the disease the vaccine is intended to help you battle is reduced by 50%. So no vaccine, 100% risk. With vaccine, 50% risk. So COVID vaccine, 70, 80 plus percent, that's as much of a risk reduction after getting the vaccine. So that's crucial. Having an effective vaccine, getting it into people, great. The third is where we're having the most trouble understanding and advocating for, and that is the third part of the trilogy of a successful vaccination campaign is filling in the gaps. Filling in the gaps of the folks who aren't going to get vaccinated for whatever reason, and filling in the gaps for not having 100% vaccine, which truly isn't necessarily possible from historically. Filling in the gaps means wearing masks, washing your hands, and I'm remiss to say that the hand washing has dropped tremendously over the past number of months. Distancing yourself when you're ill, doing all the things that we've been doing for the past year and a half. If you have those three things in place, then a vaccination campaign is successful and the rates of illness go down significantly. So with regard to the third part of the trilogy, everything else that we can do, doing what we have been doing, wearing masks is one of those. So I think that the board and town administrator are well aware from our director that DPH said at the end of July, and it's July 30th update, that that masks are meant for folks who believe themselves to be immune compromised or going into situations indoors, et cetera, among folks who are at risk for having the disease. Although the CDC said really masks should be worn indoors. Masks should even be worn outdoors if you're not sure about vaccination status or you're in a substantial risk area. And so I can tell you that over the weekend, I was in a neighboring town that was having a street fair in which there were hundreds of people. And knowing that not everyone is vaccinated and not knowing if the person next to you is vaccinated or not, I think I saw what ultimately accounts for a handful of masks. And we saw yesterday's Patriots game, not very many masks seen. So, all I can say is that the Board of Health is, promoting what the CDC is saying and obviously what DPH is saying. But it's important that the town and town leaders be up to speed and educated on what this whole vaccination thing means. I don't know, Dr. Weiner, do you want me to reiterate what we've been talking about with regard to masks, or do you want to take it from here?
No, you can go ahead. Let me just preface it by saying that we do have a subcommittee for COVID-19 made up of both myself and Dr. Saltzman. And we speak about this very regularly, and we're monitoring the situation for both the community, the town, and the country. So why don't you go ahead? You so eloquently put it at the last meeting.
So, so select board, town administrator, we have a community that has come together during this, has been good citizens, has made itself educated, has reached out to the board, has done what it should be doing. We still have an issue, as we know, the board has worked with the schools, it's worked with other town entities, and the question has come up whether or not the board advocates or recommends whether masking, whether the third part of this trilogy needs to be mandated versus, advisory. So, as we know, the CDC is advisory, the DPH is advisory. Mandates are just become difficult. They're difficult to enforce. And, at this point, we're over a year and a half into this. People know what to do, and they should be doing it. I think that our town, once again, has been good citizens and has been informed and knows what to do. I think mandating people to do things, in this case, is just going to be difficult for our town, difficult to enforce. I respect businesses. When I was chair and now Dr. Weiner's chair, we really promoted making sure we were fair and communicated and transparent. If businesses want to do this on their own and mandate coming into our store, you need to wear a mask, I think that's fine. If you as a select board say that municipal offices need to have masks while folks are inside, that's fine too. I think that's the prerogative, and I guess that can be enforced as per you say. But for the town in general, I think having an we have discussed as a board that really having an advisory akin to everything that we know is really the way to go right now. In just advocating for education and for people to continue to be smart and understand what's happening around them. I'll stop there. I don't know, Susan, Dr. Weiner, if you want to say anything further on that.
I just want to open it up to questions. If any members of our select board or Mr. Sagarino, our town administrator, have any comments or any questions, please, I know it's late, but please feel free to ask us now. Call me at any time. Call Dr. Saltzman or our director, Susan Luminello. But
Thank you, Ed. I'll start on this end. Mr. Hogan, any comments or questions for the Board of Health reps that we have?
You're probably plenty, but I'm not going tonight, and I will follow up if I feel necessary to Dr. Weiner's invitation to call him.
thank you. Mr. Hogan has been a member of the Board of Health for many years prior to becoming a member of the Select Board. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No questions. I just want to say that I want to thank the three of you for your expertise and your time. I think that it's important that, we connect and, have these updates and conversations and, as leaders of the community, just, make sure that we're showing a united front, for the residents. And I'm sure your point, Dr. Saltzman, making sure that we're doing our best to, continually educate and inform, the residents of the community, what's going on, what's happening, and the best ways to create mitigation so that those of us who may be immune compromised for whatever reason, can feel as safe as possible, as members of our community. So just again, thank the three of you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Priest. Ms. Moraney?
No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've heard it as a board numerous times from town administrator, just how fortunate we are here in Burlington to have such a talented and educated Board of Health here. We appreciate your guidance throughout the last 16 months, and we really just can't thank you enough and appreciate the update tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon. I thought you were going to say you had a talented and educated Board of Selectmen, but Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also wanted to take the opportunity. It's been a tough 16, 18 months here. I'm relatively new in this position, and I just want to thank Susan and the entire Board of Health. I'm extremely grateful for all the support that you provided to me. And again, you made a very much so made an impossible situation much easier on me and the town, municipal government as a whole, with your very thoughtful decision making, and we certainly appreciate. I can't reiterate how much I appreciate all of your efforts over this time, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sagarino. And I just want to say, granted, we have this as an agenda item, but I think that we're all willing to work with you. We know you're willing to work with us. We don't need to schedule a meeting. If you think it's necessary that you need anything from us, feel free to reach out to us, and we need something from you. I know we could reach out to you as well, but again, thank you for all your efforts in keeping our town healthy and as safe as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Tiggs.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Is 246. Chief Brown. So for the record, I'll have Chief Brown introduce himself, but I invited the chief here because I heard of another mechanical failure at the police station, and thought maybe it's about time we start to look down the road, look at the future, and think about what we need to do for this building we call a police station.
Thank you, Mr.
Chief, I'm
Chairman.
going to turn it over to you, and if you could just introduce yourself and then give some information.
Thank you. Tom Brown, Chief of Police. So I'm here tonight to discuss the agenda, obviously, for a new police department building. I understand from a budget standpoint, we all look at wants and needs. And when Chief Kent came in here back in 2010, he started to, raise the call for a new police building. And back then, you could have said it was more want. Well, we're creeping up steadily towards a need. I think everybody here is aware of it. What I'm hoping to do tonight is if you listened, and I know how government is going to work, it could be 6-7 years from now. Well, you have to have, from that endpoint, when the new building is in place, look back and say, did we meet the mark? Was it 6 to 7 years? So I would like tonight to be the official start of whatever that process is going to be, if that's possible. In your backup material that I sent over to you, and I'm sure you probably cannot see it, so I don't know if it's appropriate to just pass around the color pictures of what was sent over. And I can put them on.
Yeah.
Okay.
They came out
pretty good.
So what I did was I highlighted basically 5 areas of the building to give kind of an overview of what's going on. So right now, the very first thing I have to bring to your attention is the mold, the mildew, and the water damage. There literally is not a place that you can walk into that building where there is not a sign of water damage. If you look at any of our ceilings, the suspended ceilings, for the most part, every office has missing tiles. There is water damage all over the tiles. In the cell block, where the ceiling is more affixed, I want to say it's like a plastic material or a metal material. It is all rusted. Down in our old roll call room, when Chief Kent came in 2010, he took us out of that roll call room because we have floods all the time, consistently, and still to this day. And it's not just the groundwater, it's almost like it's coming in from the foundation. It's coming in up, high up on the wall and leaking right into our old roll call. We have a severe issue with the mildew right now in the male locker room and the female locker room, which would be basement levels 1 and 2, to the point where I don't even know how much money it's going to cost at this point to replace uniform and equipment items from the male locker room. It's not a stretch to say if you open some locker rooms, you've got boots, leather gear, and uniforms that look like they are a chia pet. As you are probably all aware, police equipment is not cheap. It's very expensive to replace. So we're working towards that right now. We are looking towards a temporary fix by bringing in some industrial dehumidifiers into the locker room. But really, unless we get a new locker room where the lockers actually provide for ventilation, we're going to continue to have this problem every year. About 2 weeks ago, we had a lieutenant working the day shift. He was sitting in his office. It's a large office with 4 workspaces, and all of a sudden, a flood started to come out the light above him. The recessed lighting literally started to pour. I have a video of it. Luckily, we were able to get his workstation out of the way, but the problem became we had water in the light balusters. So now the good news is there's so much water over there that if a fire ever started, it wouldn't light, it would smolder. So that's probably a good thing. One of the major things that happened that week and 2 weeks prior when I was on vacation is we had the same situation happen above the lieutenant's office where our main evidence room is. The main evidence room flooded and the water damaged the floor. The problem is if you look under that floor, that is where our IT server room is. The IT server room is in that space. We had to give up an office because of the, obviously, the value of the IT and just everything technology. We had to move it into its own office. We have no other place to put it, and right above it, we have severe water damage in the floor. So anytime those air conditioners let go, it comes down into the, potentially into the IT room. And there's limited area that we can move that to get it out of the way. So the mold and mildew, I'll call it mildew, and the water damage is extreme. The next area is the cell block, and this would probably go more structurally, and no offense to Chief Soder or Chief Hart, Lieutenant Hart at the time when they designed this building. The structural issues in the layout rather, of this building is very poor. If we have an arrest at any point in time and we're processing them in the booking room, that subject has to be walked through operational areas to get them into the booking room. Then from the booking room to the cell block, they're passing other operational areas. If you go into any modern day police station now, the person comes in through the garage and they are right into a holding cell or into a booking facility and then right into a holding cell. Right now, we literally could have a prisoner 5 feet away from a civilian or a non-sworn employee who happens to just be walking by when stuff goes south. So the design is not very good, but more to the point, the cell blocks, we have 10 cell blocks in the station. Only 8 of them can be used. 2 of them, you cannot access the plumbing. The way the building was designed, if a licensed plumber comes in, they cannot access the drainage or the shutoffs or anything for those 2 cells. So we're using them as supply areas. Now, the problem with that is if you have somebody in a cell, you don't want to be going back there for your SWAT supplies or regional response team supplies, et cetera. I mean, that's pretty common sense. So also, if you walked through the building right now and you look at different areas of the cement blocking, most of what we'll call the new portion of the building is cement block. There are cracks from floor to ceiling. They're not along the seams. They are through the block. And the windows, we've replaced the windows, but because they went into areas that weren't necessarily square, with this building, you can't say it has good bones. I don't think it does. So the windows in the wintertime freeze up. Some of them don't close, and that contributes to ice dams. And we have an area in our roll call room, a current area of our roll call room, that during any major thunderstorm or heavy rain event, the roll call room floods through the windows. Because of all the water damage, if you walk through the main hallways of the police station, because most of those are covered in linoleum, you can feel the water damage underneath the linoleum. Luckily, nobody's fallen through at this point. Security. The security of the police station, quite honestly, is terrible, and I really don't want to get in too much to security in a public meeting for obvious reasons, but suffice it to say, we need to really look at the security of the building as well. And I'm happy to have those, conversations, but there are just many other areas of the station that need the attention. I feel like the town has done a very good job keeping up with them, but we're putting good money after bad at this point. So I would just ask you to consider putting this in motion to get us toward that 5, 6, 7-year plan to get a new building. And as a taxpayer in town, I understand what I'm asking. I do, and I understand the need for the schools and everything else, but if you were to live in that police station, well, let's put it this way, you wouldn't want to, and I'm at that police station like many of the officers, many of the personnel, more than I'm home. So I'd just like to thank you for allowing me to bring it before you, and I do have to say, if it comes to fruition, I promised Chief Kent I would name a bathroom after him, so I would like for that to potentially happen. So I'll happily answer any questions.
Okay, that'll be an interesting naming contest, I assume. Okay, I'll start on this end, Mr. Runyon.
I've during the course of my career with the fire department, I was next door plenty of occasions over there. I know exactly what the chief is talking about. Honestly, I wasn't I was in town meeting, I believe, at the time that building was selected for a thing, and I didn't like it then, I don't like it now. But yeah, Tom, I understand your concerns over there, and I know Paul does as well. And I'm glad we're having this conversation tonight, because I think it's long overdue, and we need to sort of get on the ball and be a little more proactive and start that search.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon. Mr. Morandi?
Thank you, Chairman. As you may know, when Mr. Petron was here, myself and Mr. Hayes, Mr. Sanchez, we walked a number of sites in this town looking for a spot to put the police station. Excuse me. So I'm definitely in favor of this. Paul, do you remember how many sites we looked at?
5 or 6 anyway.
Yeah, so we looked at quite a few. If we could find a place to put it, what are we talking in today's market on an average for a police station in today's market, what they need? 27, 32,
Approximately 30 million, I believe.
$30 million? Okay. So, I mean, I don't think that could be an issue with the town, because of bonding and everything else that we can do. So I think we can make it work. Just a matter of, like, where do we put it? I think that's the biggest issue that I have right now. Do we tear that building down? I'm on board. So tear that building down, put it right there. What do we do temporarily? Put it down the high school parking lot and a couple of trailers. A bunch of stuff can happen. I think that the subcommittee needs to be put together. This guy right here being from the police department on it, and sit down and actually figure out what we can really do, where we can go with this. So.
Thank you, Mr. Morandi. Just to your point, that's what Medford just did. They had temporary police station away from their police station while they built it. So they replaced their old one with a new one, which is much better, to say the least.
Excuse me, just one second. And as we all know, Mr. Sagarino, if we were in Everett, you could put this on a postage stamp, right? But we're in Burlington, we got some land here. We put 3 police stations on that one spot if we were in Everett, right? Just saying.
At least.
Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think, I don't think one of us is against the idea of a new police station. I think before tonight, we've all been in and/or heard firsthand the stories of the mess that is the current police department station, not department. That implies that the people are moldy and compromised. But I mean, look, just focusing on the mold and the mildew and the water damage, right? That implies health and safety concerns for our officers, which we don't want. And that implies compromised IT security and compromised evidence, which again, we don't want. It's a no-brainer in my mind. I mean, I know 30 million isn't, that's a lot of money. And I mean, again, as a resident, like that's the biggest concern, I think, is the dollars and what that's gonna do. But I mean, compromised safety of our police force and, the information and data that you do your work with is above everything else. You can't do the job to the best of your ability without those things. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer in my book.
Thank you, Mr. Priest. Mr. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I can't agree more, and over the years, we've had conversations, and it's still mind-boggling to me that I remember when I first came on, where we were with the annex, the Station 2 for the fire department, how long they had taken just to get to a certain point, and then 10 years went by before we actually opened Station 2. I hope we can do better this time. There is serious health and safety issues for the police officers, for the civilian personnel, for those who come and go in that building on a regular basis. I don't think people have taken seriously the summary that you have just given us again today. And yes, we should have done better years ago. But yes, let's make today day one on this journey. And to that, can we get a summary from somebody what the procedure is? What does that roadmap look like for us? When do we have to do certain things? Give us the dates that we have to start moving the paperwork around so that we can start making sure we don't fall behind again, and then this time next year we're having the same conversation. So if someone could give me that, I'd appreciate it. And I don't even want to ask for a summary from anybody on what the health issues are for our department going down the next couple of years, because we talk about $30 million to build a new building. I just can't even imagine the human cost and the financial cost of what it is going to cost us if we don't do something sooner than 10 years.
Mr. Hogan, and I couldn't agree with you more, with the exception of one thing. You said the chief gave a good summary. The chief, as you may well know, I worked there for almost 30 years. The chief didn't touch upon the bugs, the mice, the rats. He didn't tell you that once a week they have to manually pour water down the sewer drains or the whatever drains they are, because they dry up and sewer gas comes up in addition to what's there. Yeah, water coming out of a light fixture sounds like an old Three Stooges clip that I saw. Cracks in the foundation, that's in the new part, the part that was built in the 1990s. The majority of the building was built in the 1890s. And it shows. Majority of our police department is working out of a building built in the 1890s. I think we always tout ourselves how Burlington's far ahead of the curve on so many different things. 1890s, we're behind the curve on this one. Well, the reason why, again, I asked the chief to come, because this is the feasibility portion. Where are we gonna put it? How much is it gonna cost? Can we build it? I mean, I've gone to police stations where the parking is underground now, so you don't have to clear the snow off the cruisers. You don't have to worry about not being able to get out of the parking lot. Something to look at. My own experience, when I was working one day, and this is logged with the police and fire department, and the chief can vouch for this. I took a 4 to 12 overtime. I forgot my tie. So I went into my office to grab my tie, and I smelled gas, or smelled what I thought was gas. So I called the chief's administrative assistant over, and I said, "Do you smell gas?" And she said, "Yes, I do." We called the captain over. "Do you smell gas?" "Yes, I do." We called the fire department over, and the furnace room, which is below my office, the fire department went down, and there were very high readings. There were high readings of gas, natural gas, in the same room where the furnace was, and the flames had burned their way through the furnace. You had an open flame in a room building up with gas. At some point, I was a policeman, I'm not a fireman, but at some point, I'm thinking, when that gas built to a certain point, that flame would have ignited it. And I may not have been here today, who knows? But that was a very scary situation, knowing that if I didn't forget my tie and go into my office to get my spare tie, I never would have smelled that. And who knows what would have happened. This building is, I can tell you one thing, the demolition cost, if we choose that building, won't be as high as we expect, because that building is demolishing itself. So that's my own personal and professional point in this. Chief, to Mr. Hogan's point, if we could just get this rolling and not drag slowly, let's get it rolling. Let's make sure it falls into our bonding schedule, make sure we do all of the right things. But I too would rather see it sooner than later, because ask yourself, would you want a family member working in those conditions? That's all I'm sorry, but that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Mr. Zagarino, anything?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so that the chief and the officers know, this is a topic of conversation for us amongst the board for years now. So it has its place in the schedule. We'll continue to work. It's moved up quite a bit in the affordability, in terms of being able for the town to be able to afford it without drastically impacting the taxpayers. So we will work with the Ways and Means to develop a schedule and try to bring this project forward to town meeting in the near future.
Thank you. Chief, anything further?
No, thank you. Thank you for entertaining. I tried to, keep it at a sea level. I haven't developed a scratch and sniff way to get the pictures over here, but when the sewer gas comes up through,
Thank you for
come on
reminding
over.
me. Granted, you've given us a handful of photos. Since we're beginning day one today, can we start with maybe a look at the historical repairs, the costs, photos, maybe a present PowerPoint on the photos, so that we have I mean, these are 5 photos, 6 photos. I know what the building looks like, maybe not, you know, the board may or may not know all the areas, but I think we need to show the real story, and not just 5 photos, 6 photos. Let's show what it is.
Yep, I can do that, and I have about 400 photos and some videos as well, so I can put something together. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chairman, while the chief is still here, may I take one moment?
Absolutely, Mr. Hogan.
I want to thank the chief and the department, and I'll thank others later during the subcommittee meeting, for what they did with us on Saturday for the 9/11 ceremony. The chief's participation was important and valuable, as well as the other members of the department. You know, I've already had the chief send out a blast thanking them from me for all that they did, and it turned out to be an excellent day, so I wanted to thank you, Chief, again, publicly.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, next item on the agenda, approval for appointments and committees. They are in our backup material, and anybody have, yes, Mr. Segredo?
Sure, do you want me to just list them off?
Yeah,
Mr.
if you could, for the record.
Okay, do you want to vote them all together or separately?
If anybody has any objection, I'd like to get them all voted as one, unless there's an objection. Okay, I guess we'll do them as one.
All right, for the board's sake, I will read off the names. For the Rink Oversight Committee, Brian Curtin, Brendan Egan from Rec, Sean Hart from Burlington High School, Nicole Kosha from Burlington High School, Doug Davison, Joe Morandi. For the ISAC Committee, we have Ben Axelrod, Joe Bongiorno, Bob Kuna, Lieutenant Glenn Mills, and Library Director Michael Wick. And we want to appoint an alternate to the COA Board, Rose Magliozzi, for an alternate seat for 1 year. And those are for tonight's appointments. I would ask the board to make those appointments as is listed in the backup and to waive the 15-day waiting period.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, 5-0-0. Okay, 248, review and updates. Mr. Denizio with us on the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act. Mr. Denizio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to share my screen to share the slides that you sent. Hang on a second. You all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to go over, this has to do also with Article 4 on the upcoming warrant that you'll be reviewing next. But just to go over the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, as it's commonly referred to. Can't really see what you can see, so hopefully you're on this. So what is it? The American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, authorized funding for cities and towns through the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery fund. I will say that the federal government is usually spot on with their acronyms, and I think they missed the mark on this one a little bit. So ARPA, that's what ARPA does. What does it mean for us? How much is it? So ARPA, through that state and local fiscal recovery fund, directs 2 pots of money to the town of Burlington. Those 2 pots of money add up to $8.5 million, and how they're made up is there's a direct piece that is directly allocated to the municipality, which comes straight to us, and that's funded at $105-ish per capita. There's a second piece, which is the county allocation, and it's a little difficult for Mass because they don't operate like most of the country that operates under a county system. Up here in the Northeast, we do more local supervision and local governance. So the county piece for the way Massachusetts is doing it, for Middlesex County at least, is they're just, it's a pass-through. They're gonna get the money and they're gonna send it right out to us. And that allocation for the county piece was $194 per capita. So those two amounts, which we've actually received half of this money already, the way they were doing it was once approved and we submitted that we do want the money, they sent us half right away so that nobody would run into any cash flow issues if they started spending the money right away. This latest round of money is a little bit different from the first round that was known as the CARES Act. The CARES Act was very helpful and it was timely and had a great acronym, but it was more restrictive than the rest of these, than this anyway. It had needed to be specifically for unbudgeted and unforeseen expenses that had to tie back to COVID directly. It was way more rigid. And this funding, thankfully, the federal government saw in their wisdom to listen to the states and the cities and towns to say to allow us to use it for different things. So here's just a list of the eligible categories we can use this funding for this time to support public health expenditures. This would be example of any any funding for COVID mitigation, for any expenses in public health and safety, staff expenses, things like that. To address the negative economic impacts caused by public health emergency. Next one is replace lost public sector revenue. This is a big one for us and for everybody around here, specifically us. This is the revenue replacement we've been talking about for a year. That would be key to us. Provide premium pay for essential workers. And last is to invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So like I said, more categories, better defined. This. There's also two specific ineligible uses. I think from everybody asking if they could do this, they spelled it out right in the ruling that you cannot use this money to fund pension or OPEB obligations. Again, this not being as rigid as the first round of funding, the eligibility spending period is much longer for this. The CARES Act, the original COVID-related funding, expires in October. This expires in December of 2024. So really the funding is available for FY22, FY23, FY24, and part of FY25. So that's key for anybody that wants to use this one-time money to plug a hole in their budget, but then not create an operational deficit in their budget. So what do we plan to do with the funds? Our top priority remains combating the public health emergency and any unexpected, unforeseen, or unbudgeted expenses that come from it. So that's obviously going to be the top priority no matter what. We have to be able to pay for costs that come up because of COVID. Going forward, our spending approach is multi-pronged approach. Is basically going to focus on three of the categories from the previous slides. The first one, as I just said, our top priority is supporting the public health expenses, anything that comes up. We're also looking to use some for revenue replacement and some for water and sewer infrastructure. So specifically for 22, proposed spending plan is to use $2 million. 500,000 of that has been used already to begin the engineering services and architectural design for the addition at the Mill Pond treatment plant that was necessary for the filtration of the PFAS. John Sanchez has talked quite a bit about that, and there's an article on the warrant to bond for that rest of that project. Another 1.5 million is earmarked to be used for revenue replacement. So this would be $500,000 a year over the next 3 years. This will help us plug the hole, replace some of the items that we had to cut last September when we made a $2.1 million reduction to the budget. And it will also allow us the time over 3 years for our local receipts to build back up that 500,000 over a 3-year period, so that we're not creating a structural deficit in the budget. So in Article 4 on the warrant, what we're going to talk about in the next agenda item is to add back some budgets that had to make decreases last September. So you may remember that last September on the town operating budget, we cut $350,000 from the town side. From the school side, they cut $350,000. And then we cut the rest from accommodated accounts. This is just a list of the budgets that we proposed, reinstating those positions or hours or partial FTEs to the departments listed below. And then what? So after FY22, we'll have some monies available, 6.5 million if we didn't have to spend any on supporting the public health expenses. But we think that the best use of that money would be to use it for water and sewer projects. You'll note that there are 2 that are on the warrant that total almost $20 million. That money could be used for that. But we also have time to, if anything else comes up, or if there's any other proposals or what have you, we would have time to do that because we can spend the money for the next couple of fiscal years. So that was sort of just a quick synopsis of what we're planning to use the money for. If I can ever get it to stop sharing, then I can answer your question.
Mr. Genizio?
Okay.
Is that it?
That's it. That's it for the slides.
Mr. Severino, does this need an approval?
Just an update for the board.
Do you have any questions on this one?
For John? No. No, at all. Thank you.
Nick?
Just quickly, I just want to say that I like the proposed use of the funding, so thank you for figuring out how we would use it. I think it's great that, especially for us, the eligible use includes revenue offset. Knowing that hotels have not bounced back in any strong way whatsoever, it's great. And I think it's also great that we can go back and retroactively fix last year's budget as well, that money that we had to cut, both on our side and school side. That's going to be, I think, very helpful. So thank you guys for everything that you're doing with this. I think it's great the funding came through. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Priestley. Mr. Hogan? And I have nothing either. Any follow, I know Mr. Morandi is.
Okay.
Follow
up to that.
No, I just want to say that the plan going forward will give us some flexibility.
As we move forward, we're not allocating, we're only allocating a small portion of the funding. We do know that the funding can be used for water and sewer infrastructure projects as well as broadband, and we know that we have a ton of those, including some unexpected ones related to the PFAS. So whatever we don't need to replace revenue or to address the public health emergency in the upcoming years, we'll be able to provide that funding directly to reduce the cost of those projects. Specifically the PFAS is the one I'm thinking of.
Thank you, Mr. Severino. Just a point of order. The first item agenda item, the hybrid town meeting, needs to be voted on tonight, correct?
Yes, I have that here. I'm not going to let you leave without voting on it.
Okay, I know we didn't have a presentation on it, but we have done this in the past.
Yep.
I'm assuming based on the information we've received tonight and past times that we voted on a hybrid town meeting, anybody have any objection to us voting on this as presented, or not as presented, as shown in the backup in the agenda? We need to approve this then, so we're looking for an approval for a hybrid town meeting September 27th. The motion is in, a suggested motion is in the packet, if anybody wants to try that. It's not very extensive.
Is it the same motion we've done the last 2 times?
It's pretty much that, but
So will have to be read
I
into
can
the.
read it, Mr. Chairman, if
All right,
nobody has
Mr.
it available.
Sagarino's gonna read the motion.
To approve the request from the town moderator and the town clerk to hold all sessions of the September town meeting, both live and virtual, with the town meeting starting date being September 27th, 2021.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, moving to second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500 on item number 236. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I have to excuse myself.
okay, Mr. Moretti.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. So approval on warrant articles for the September 27th town meeting. I met with Mr. Sagarino, and we reviewed the articles, and we believe that this board traditionally takes position on certain articles, financial articles, sometimes general bylaws. And what we deduced from that discussion was we believe that we need to take a position on Articles 3 through 9, then number 11, potentially number 13. Do we discuss that and vote on it, or do we vote to bring it to town meeting? And the other articles that we believe we may or may not need to include or discuss are 18, which is changing the IH zoning to innovations. That's just a definition change. And then 19, 20, and 21 would be regarding properties that would then go into IH or be rezoned to IH. Correct, Mr. Sagarino?
Correct.
Okay. So, does anybody have anything they want to discuss on the financial articles 3 through 9? If not, I'll be looking for, if you do have a question or concern, let me know. If not, I'll be looking for a motion to approve Articles 3 through 9 as printed in the warrant.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve Articles 3 through 9 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 400 on Articles 3 through 9. General article, 117 South Bedford Street. Sagarino, any
Sure.
words for that?
Yes, Select Board Member Runyon could elaborate further, but this is the affordable house that the town exercised its first right of refusal on at town meeting a couple years ago through the efforts of the Housing Partnership Committee, and Select Board Member Runyon was integral in that. We were able to utilize, purchase the home and basically fix it up for resale, and now we're going back to town meeting. We're asking for permission to market that property as an affordable unit. Mike, do you have anything further to add?
Actually, I got quite a few people to thank, but I'll do that at a separate meeting once we get past town meeting and have more lottery information and so forth.
Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mike, because we came across this parcel at a time when we lost our housing coordinator, and quite frankly, given the impacts of my job with the pandemic, it's not a project that I would have been able to manage myself, and Mike really took the reins on it, and through the efforts of a lot of members of the community, but he spearheaded the charge, and he was able to almost do this single-handedly on his own with help from a lot of others. And I'm very grateful that we're able to turn this property around, and we'll be able to provide it to a deserving family in town once we get the town meeting permission. So thank you to Mike.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any further discussion, or is there a motion to support Article number 11?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of supporting Article number 11?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. Also, I didn't want to exclude all the articles, so if the board has any article that I did not mention, that they feel that should be discussed, they want to discuss, have questions on, take a position on, just let me know. Article 13, Select Board hearing, public hearing requirement. Does anybody want to discuss that, vote on it, or, we don't have to, but.
So for the sake of discussion, Mr. Chairman, Paul, just to clarify, Town Council has reviewed this and is, we'll say, relatively comfortable with the way it's worded?
I think she would make the argument that it's a very difficult timeline for the board to turn around based upon the way the bylaw is written.
Sure. And I mean, I would hope that we would absolutely make that argument to town meeting, but I'm not gonna refuse it. I mean, I'm happy to support it in this case, and then see it, you know, on the floor of town meeting.
Absolutely. The board can take a position, or you can choose not to take a position and let town meeting decide it out either way.
Mr. Runyon, Mr. Hogan, any discussion on that one?
I think the intent of the article is fine. Again, there's a really short timeline there. I don't know, you know, how the Attorney General's office is gonna feel about that when it gets there, but whatever the consensus of the board is fine with me.
So is there a motion to support or to allow this article, Mr. Sager, is it a support? Are we supporting the article, or are we just voting to allow it to go to town meeting? Or?
You've already done that, so it's
Yeah.
on the warrant, so it's just a question of whether or not you want to take a vote to support or not. Most general bylaw articles like that, the board may not take a position on either way, but, you know, if you wanted to, you could.
All right, so we'll be looking for a motion to support Article 13.
I'll make that motion that we support it.
Do we have a second? Second? No second. So the motion is not moved.
Okay, so the board will just pass on that one.
Right.
Moving forward here.
Okay, Article 18 is changing the definition of IH districts to innovation as opposed to the old high-rise terminology. Again, we don't have to take a position on these. So I'll take Articles 18, 19, 20, and 21 as a group because they all have to do with high-rise zoning.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd be open to making a motion around Article 18 because I am uncertain as to, we talked about this earlier, planning board's position on 2 and 10 Wall Street in terms of their lack of support. But I am in favor of the notion of changing the name of it from high-rise industrial, which I think at this point has become a misnomer, to something like, you know, the innovation. So I'll go ahead and make a motion for Article 18 that we support the renaming of IH to Innovation District. And then if it's okay with the board, I'd like to, you know, at our meeting prior to town meeting, take up the rest once we know more about planning board's
Okay,
decision.
so if it's okay with the board, we'll just stick with Article number 18, and we will table, if we have any discussion, but table 19, 20, 21 to prior to town meeting. All right, so Article 18, do we have a motion to support it? Seconded by Mr. Runyon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400 to support Article 18. Okay, minutes from the special meeting on August 30th. You guys have any questions, or do I have a motion?
A motion to approve the minutes of, August 30th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400 for the minutes. Subcommittees, Mr. Hogan.
I just want to reiterate the feeling of success and satisfaction with what we were able to do on Saturday. Not only for the families of those people whose names are forever etched on our town common, but for the community as a whole, for how it has impacted a lot of people. The number of people who contributed in one way or another to not only creating the patio and fixing up the town common, but participating in the program. It's a long list. Members of the fire department, members of the police department, members of other departments that helped with the area. It was a success. It has to be considered a success for the community. And I want to thank everybody who was involved and those who showed up. It was a great crowd. And for those who have made nice comments over the weekend. So that's all I have to say about that.
Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to echo Select Board Member Hogan's sentiments about Saturday. It was truly a wonderful event, and you know, with the addition of the Pentagon-shaped patio and the strip of grass representing Flight 93, I really do feel like our memorial is complete now, and it looks absolutely beautiful, and is a wonderful memorial to all those lives lost and affected, since then because of the tragic events of 9/11. Just quickly, obviously we've heard in great detail about economic development, so I can skip right over that. But ISAC has been working with Paul and the directors of the various departments to help move cybersecurity forward in incremental steps. And last I heard, and Paul, you can elaborate on this, things are going well, and I appreciate that committee's efforts to work in collaboration with the staff to ensure that we are taking precautionary measures with regards to cybersecurity. In terms of the sculpture park, we had the unveiling of the new sculpture, which is absolutely beautiful. I had the opportunity to attend a couple weeks ago. If you haven't had a chance, it's another Dale Rogers piece. It's a heart with two cardinals on it. It's a great little turnout for that event. Just really, really nice. And since then, we've had a couple updates with regards to, folks looking to donate a few more things, not necessarily sculptures, but uplighting other things, which we'll discuss further and hopefully get on our next agenda to discuss. Transportation and DEI subcommittees are coming along with regards to review of the applicants on both. Hopefully getting to a good spot in terms of finalizing that so that at our next meeting we can appoint those positions and get those subcommittees moving. But otherwise, that's all I have.
Mr. Runyon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two items. In fact, I know you are all aware of the recent news article. Burlington was named one of the 10 best communities that people are looking to relocate to.
Nationwide.
Nationwide. I've seen it widely shared on social media and BCAT as well. We continue to be in the news for all the good reasons. Okay, we're featured in newspaper ads, New England Real Estate Journal, Realtor.com. We continue to find the spotlight, and I think I'm certainly very proud of that, and I'm sure you guys are as well. So kudos to being one of 10 best communities across the country. The second thing, I would just like to make an appeal again to folks at home. The town is coming up on our 225th anniversary in just 3 years, and our historical commission has they have a laundry list of items that they need help preparing for. And if there are folks out there that have a little bit of time on their hands and would be interested in helping the town prepare for that 225th anniversary, as well as other everyday items that the historical commission is struggling with to complete. So any help folks may have some interest in local history, this would be a great opportunity to lend a hand. They're really a very good group, they're dedicated folks, but they need some help.
It seems like just yesterday we were celebrating our 200th.
Yeah, it seems so, huh? Yeah, well, I was at the Fire Academy, seems like yesterday.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon.
You're welcome.
Just a reminder to the residents, I know Dr. Weiner mentioned it earlier, Household Hazardous Waste Day is this Saturday, the 18th, 8:30 to 12 noon, Francis Wyman Elementary School. Be patient. It's usually a long line of cars because they do a great job, but they want to do it properly. And we've all mentioned the 9/11 ceremony or service, Day of Remembrance. Not only was the common look beautiful, it was a beautiful event, but Selectman Hogan, you're the director of that, so to speak. You're the one that organizes it, and it wouldn't be that way if it weren't for you. So I wanted to thank you for all you've done, not just for this day of remembrance, but for all the other ones in the past. You're the one that keeps us in check and lets us know that we should never forget the tragic events of that day. But thank you for what you've done for this town and for that event, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sagarino?
I have nothing additional to add, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, citizens' time. Do I have anybody for citizens' time? Lynn?
Star 6 to unmute.
Star 6 to unmute.
Star 3 to raise your
Star
hand.
3 to raise your hand. Nothing showing. In that case, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, meeting adjourned.